Welcome to this presentation of the DExClone tool, one of the tools in the Dex toolkit family. I am Mats Hjelte and I am a consultant at Synthell. I am also the designer and implementer of this tool. So what is this tool all about? Well, assume you have some kind of reusable spec. Could be the generic requirement spec, the requirement spec for your generic system, for your product line, your system family. And then you want to use this as an input to creating a variant specification for a certain customer, for example. And in this variant, of course, you don't want to have all the functions that are available in your complete product. You want to extract all the relevant parts from here over into your variant specification. And a naive approach for doing this would be to just take a copy of this generic spec and then you put it here and start changing things. And that's good as long as the source does not change. But it will. Sooner or later there will be changes. And then you have a problem. You need to understand what the changes are. You also need to take those changes and manually put them into your variant specification in order to bring that variant specification up to date with your latest version of this generic spec. And of course this is a problem. It takes quite a lot of effort to do this. So what can now this DExClone tool do? Well, it can help you with this. Instead of just copying the data is cloned in such a way that this variant knows exactly all the choices you've made. Each object over here knows where it came from, which also means that the changes you do over here, they can be automatically synchronized into your variant spec. This is really what this tool is all about. It can be used in many other ways also, as you will see. It's quite general, but the main purpose is really this possibility to extract things in an orderly way and synchronize changes later on. So let's have a look at the tool.
Let us start by creating a clone module. As I create a normal formal module, that will be my clone. Like this. And you can find the DExClone tools in this DExClone menu, complete with an extensive online help. You have information about the tool, which version you are using, and you can also request a license using this about box. But right now we will use the clone object tool to clone information from another module into this clone module. I select source module. And here I can select the baseline. I take this old one. And I can also select the view. So here I select the leisure view, which picks up all the objects that are part of the leisure variant of this FlexiBoat product that we are that have been specified in this source specification. So I'm basically cloning this view into my clone module. I want to clone the entire module, so I say module to module. I need to select attributes also. I select all the attributes, but let's see, this remark, I want to change that attribute name in the clone module. I use a different name in the clone module because I would like to have my own remark in that module. So that could be a name conflict, which I can avoid by doing this. So, and now I just need to press apply. Save the changes. And you can see here, I get a perfect copy really of this view, this FlexiBoat leisure view. And it's not just a copy. Each object here knows where it came from. So if I select an object here, for example, I can navigate to that object, go to source object. There are two attributes on these objects that define where they came from. You have something called the cloning context, and you have clone from object. Clone from object, that is the absolute number in the source module. This cloning context is a reference to a cloning context that contains all the choices you made, which module, which baseline, which view, which attributes. So instead of having that information on each object, you have a reference to a cloning context. And the cloning contexts in the module you can find using edit cloning contexts. And in this case, you have one cloning context. You have only cloned one module here. And this cloning context was automatically created when we cloned the other module. Here I can now change the baseline. Let's select baseline 1.0 instead, which means we will use a different baseline for the cloning. So if we select 1.0 and synchronize, we will get something different. I close this. Well, to synchronize, you use something called synchronize cloned objects. And to really perform the synchronization, you will need to uncheck dry run. If you just want to check what will be done without doing any changes, keep this check. And now let's do the synchronization. And you can see there were quite a lot of changes here. You had one added object, 29 modified objects. And one nice thing here is that you can see there are attributes that show you what happened. Clone last synchronized result will show you what this was modified, what was added, what was deleted, and what was not changed at all. There is also this cloned attributes changed attribute. For those objects that were modified, this attribute shows which attributes were modified. So, for example, if we look at this one, you can see that class and object status has been modified between that old 0.2 baseline and this new 1.0 baseline. And if you are interested in the actual attribute values, you should go to the history and look them up. Here you can see that class was changed from figure to info. Sorry, object status. Yeah, the object status was changed from ready to nothing at all. These other changes have to do with the original cloning. Let's save this. Cloned attributes are protected by trigger. Well, this trigger needs to be installed. I install the trigger. And when the trigger is installed, this means that if I change a cloned attribute, like for example this one, if I say the flexible shall have 4 fixed OR locks, I get trying to change cloned attribute object text. If I cancel, my changes will be rolled back. But if I accept the change, not only is the change performed, but it's also noted in an attribute here that this attribute has now been overridden. This means that it should not be overwritten by the next synchronization. You can see here, cloned attributes overridden now contains object text. Let's say I change some other attribute, like significance, for example. Sorry. Let's change significance to should. Like this is also a cloned attribute, so I get the same thing here. And you can say now significance and object text have been changed. If I now synchronize, I can use this once again. Nothing should happen because okay, these attribute values are different from in the source module, but that's my intention also. So you can see the synchronization will not destroy my edits here. If I want to change my mind and change this back, I use clone object properties. Here you can see that this object has a couple of overrides, object text and significance. These are not checked, it means that they are not synchronized any longer. But if I want to have them synchronized, I can put the check box back here and press apply. And you can see now attributes overridden is changed. So the next synchronization here should restore the original source values. Yeah, you can see everything is restored. There's also a function for pruning your tree here, your chapter tree. If there are objects that you don't want in your clone, well, the normal way of controlling this is by cloning a view, but you can also select something here, like mooring equipment, saying, okay, this is not something that I want to have. And I say, delete object and remove from cloning. This one goes away, but it's also marked in the parent object here. Let's use clone object properties again. Here you can see that this parent object knows that this child object should not be restored next time we synchronize. It has been suppressed from the cloning. So if I synchronize, all right, this one goes on top. That's clear. If I synchronize, nothing should happen. This chapter I removed should not come back. If I wanted to come back, I could put a check here and say apply. And then I synchronize. And the chapter comes back. Here it is. Marked as added, of course. Now let's stop and reflect a little. The fact that all the changes you've done in the clone module, the objects you're suppressed, the view you're using, the attributes you have overridden, everything is recorded in this clone module. This is quite an important thing, because you know exactly which changes you have done relative to the source module. And this is also what makes it possible to synchronize the changes in a controlled way. Your most important cloning actions are recorded in a module attribute. It's called the cloning history. Here you can see that we clone the entire module, Flexibot SCRS initially. Then you can see we changed the baseline, and then we have performed a number of synchronizations. Now let's close this module. It is also possible to use cloning to merge data from many sources. Let's create a new clone module. We use clone object. And this time I use object-to-object cloning instead of module-to-module cloning. I browse for a module. I select all attributes and I select the chapter that I want to clone. And I want to put that as the first object in my clone module. Now I can go fetch another source module. Let's fetch the system requirements from here. I select all the attributes. I put this after the current object in my clone module. I save, and let's close all these other modules. Now, as you can understand, there are now two different cloning contexts in this module. One for the stakeholder requirements here and one for the system requirements. Because we have fetched data from two different places. Let's have a look at the cloning contexts for the objects. And you can see that the introduction comes from the stakeholder requirements spec. The system requirements, they come from this FlexiBoat SURS, the system requirements spec. Each time a new set of choices is used in cloning, a new context will be created. If you want to reuse an existing context when you clone, this is possible. You can load an existing cloning context. Let's load the STRS here. And now I can continue and get the stakeholder requirements using all the same choices that I had when I picked up the introduction previously. Thank you very much for viewing. If you're interested in this product, please contact Synthell at www.syntell.se. Thank you very much.